For this video, I want to go over the current stocking in my 40-gallon tank, as I often see people asking for stocking ideas and ending up with untested suggestions and recommendations. As you can see, this is exactly how I stock my 40-gallon tank, and I haven't had any real issues with aggression or anything like that in this aquarium. The general idea was to get two sets of shoaling fish that would occupy different levels of the water column in the tank, and some centerpiece fish that would swim wherever they wanted. This resulted in me choosing Cardinal Tetras for the bottom half of the tank, Harlequin Rasboras for the top half, and Peal Gourami as the centerpiece fish, and I think it works really well. So starting with my Cardinal Tetras, and these guys are very similar to Neon Tetras with their red and blue look, but they can get a little bit larger and they do tend to prefer slightly warmer water. Cardinals do have less white on their belly than Neon, so it is quite easy to tell the two apart if you see them side by side. Just like Neon Tetras, Cardinal Tetras do tend to stick to the bottom half of the aquarium, and they tend to rather wait in the bottom half for food to sink to their water level than go to the surface to eat. Their red and blue look really pops against the green of the live plants in any planted tank, and it instantly causes the fish to catch the eye. Although people do often say that Cardinal Tetras school, this does seem to be rare in my experience, and they only really show up when they are startled or scared of something. One thing that I have noticed is that they do tend to show up around dusk when the aquarium lights switch to blue, and I'm guessing it's some kind of evolutionary thing due to the change in lighting. Cardinal Tetras have a recommended water temperature of 73 to 84 degrees Fahrenheit or 23 to 29 degrees Celsius, with a pH range of 3.5 up to 7.5. So there's still plenty of crossover with other popular fish in the hobby. I really haven't seen any type of aggression out of these guys, and it's rare that they even chase each other for spawning rights or anything like that. They just kind of bimble around the tank and wait for food. My cardinals do like to go off on their little adventures and explore the tank, and I often find them amongst the plants, rocks and driftwood in this setup without any other cardinals near them, so they are quite a confident fish. As you can see in this clip, they do tend to stick to the bottom half of the aquarium, adding some beautiful colours and movement to the low sections of the tank. Cardinal Tetras max out at around 1.5 inches or 3.5 centimeters, making them the smallest fish in this current setup, but they really don't seem to be bothered or scared by the larger fish in any way. Now these guys are a little bit more expensive than Neon Tetras, especially in my area, but from what I've seen other people say online, they do tend to be a hardier fish, and so far I haven't lost a single Cardinal Tetra out of this tank. Next up we have Harlequin Rasboras, and I really do feel that these guys were an underrated fish after actually keeping them in one of my own aquariums. My camera definitely doesn't do these guys justice, and another thing I've noticed is that in pet stores they really don't seem to be coloured up, probably due to stress or something like that, but they have a great little orange hue to them that looks amazing if it catches the aquarium lights right. Harlequin Rasboras are pretty cheap, and I do often see them on sale or available as a group bulk order in local pet stores, making them a great budget friendly fish. These guys can max out at just under 2 inches or 4.5 centimeters, and they tend to prefer water that is between 70 and 72 degrees Fahrenheit or 21 and 28 degrees Celsius, with a pH of 5.0 to 7.5. The dominant males do chase the other Harlequin Rasboras on a semi-regular basis, but it never seems to get physical, and I think it's just to maintain the hierarchy and establish breeding rights. I've never once seen my Harlequin Rasboras chase any of the other fish in the tank, and they usually just stick to themselves and do their own thing. Speaking of sticking to themselves, my Harlequin Rasboras do seem to just randomly decide that it's time to bunch up and shoal around the tank as a group, even if there's no obvious reason as to why they're scared or anything like that. As you can see in this clip, my Harlequin Rasboras do stick to the upper layer of the water column in the tank, making these a great little option for adding colour and movement near the surface. One thing that I would say is that these guys do seem a little keen around mealtime, and they tend to get on the food as soon as it's added to the tank, and they often push each other out of the way when feeding. Thankfully this isn't much of an issue with this particular setup, as the smaller cardinals stay in the lower levels of the water column anyway and just wait for food to sink to them, and the Peal Gourami in the tank are large enough to just not be faced by the smaller harlequins. Moving on, and we get to my Peal Gourami, and these guys really are beautiful fish, especially the male with his red breeding jacket and feathered fins, and I can't wait for them both to reach full size. The female does still have some colour on her belly as well as the various spots, making her a great looking fish too, and I originally got one male and two females, but one of the females just refused to eat and ended up dying. Still, the other two fish seem healthy and happy, but the male does chase the female from time to time, but from what I've seen online, this is totally normal until they reach adulthood. Thankfully, the chasing is starting to calm down. In the last week or two, the female's just been tilting to her side when the male chases her, and he kind of just loses interest and goes off and looks for food. If you do want to add these to your tank, then I probably wouldn't recommend adding multiple males to a tank that's only 40 gallons, and you probably are going to need a larger tank. Even just the amount of chasing that my male does to the single female in here makes me consider picking up another female just to give the one I've got a break, but I will wait to see how things go as he has calmed down quite a bit recently. Peal Gourami can max out at 5 inches or 12 centimeters, making them a decent sized fish, so you can't add many to a 40-gallon tank either, so keep that in mind. They do tend to be pretty cheap, and they usually only cost the same as 2 to 4 Harlequin Rasboras or Cardinal Tetras in my area, and I absolutely love the look of these guys in this tank. I often see people online say that gourami tend to stick to the surface of aquariums, but these two Peal Gourami will happily swim in all water levels of the tank to forage for food, and my little honey gourami does the same in his tank too. These pearls do swim off on their own for their own little adventures without each other when foraging for food, and they just don't seem to be timid or shy in any way at all. So moving on to the exact stock numbers of these 3 fish that I have in the tank, and I have 2 Peal Gouramis, 15 Cardinal Tetras and 13 Harlequin Rasboras. Now you can customize this quite a lot depending on what you want, because this tank is not fully stocked yet, so I could add even more fish if I wanted to. Instead of keeping a male and female Peal Gourami, you could try and keep just 1 female or 2 females or something like that to totally remove the chasing and potential breeding aggression. If you really wanted, you could try and add other species to the tank as well, like Curated or something like that, for absolute bottom feeders who will rest on the substrate most of the time. So moving on to feed in the tank, and I usually use Fluval Bug Bites and NT Labs Micro Crumb in combination as the staple foods for the tank. All of the fish in this setup do love the Micro Crumb, but for some reason my Peal Gourami do tend to avoid the bug bites, and I have no idea why, but the Rasboras and the Tetras wolf it down. Other foods that I've tried in this tank include Bloodworm, Daphnia and Cyclops, but everything definitely seems to prefer the Bloodworm over the other 2, but they do eat all 3. The tank's water parameters are very easy to maintain, and it has a pH of 6.5 with the aqua soil helping with this, and it has a water temperature of 77 degrees Fahrenheit or 25 degrees Celsius, and all the fish seem happy. Just to quickly touch on the live plants that I have in this tank, as I do think that live plants are important for hiding spots and stuff like that. I have 2 Echinodorus cordifolius fluitans in the back left corner, and these are still grown, but these can get pretty big. There's an Echinodorus aquatica slightly further in, with this being one of the smaller sword plants, and I have one of these in my 12-gallon tank without issue. It's a great plant. Next up is an Echinodorus renni. That is another smallish sword plant that does get a little bit bigger than the aquatica, but this one has a red tint on its leaves, adding a splash of colour to the tank. I've added 2 Java ferns on the right hand side island to try and add some cover and hiding spots for the fish, but I only really see the cardinals in here on a regular basis, and sometimes the pearls will go into it to rummage for food. Below the Java fern I have 2 Anubias petites to fill out the bottom of that island, and I also have an Anubias barteri on the right hand side, but the barteris can get big, so keep that in mind with your own tanks. The middle island is a bunch of Anubias coinleaf, Anubias nana and Anubias angustifolia with some bucephalandra on there as well. I used Henolanthium telinum green for the carpet in this tank, not realising that it would melt and dump a ton of waste organics into the water column, and that's the main reason it's currently suffering from algae that you'll see in the clips. Rotala rotundifolia is one of the best performing stem plants by far in my water conditions, so I put a bunch of it into the back of this tank. Now this is more to serve as a Rotala farm, so I can quickly and easily take cuttings out of this tank for my future tanks, but I do genuinely like the look of Rotala anyway, and I did need a stem plant for the background. As usual, I use Salvinia auriculata as my floating plant of choice, but red root floaters or Amazon frog beetle both work very well too. Here's a minute of the fish swimming around in the tank just to show you how they naturally interact without jump cuts or anything like that in the video footage, so you can see that there's no problems with aggression or anything like that for your own tanks. I absolutely love this stocking list, and I think it's a great option for anyone else who's looking to build out a 40 gallon tank. Anyway guys, thanks for watching, have a good day, and here's the footage of the tank.